Hey, you guys. Whoa, the light. Hey, everyone. Okay, hopefully I managed to do that in a way that didn't loop my audio at the beginning. And hopefully you can see me okay. I think my camera's a bit blurry. Sorry. Try and fix it. Cool. How are we going? Hey, you guys. Yeah, it's working. Okay, cool. Sorry about the terrible lighting though. I don't really know how to fix that. I'm trying to be a little bit quiet considering it's yet again exactly 20 past 4. I guess I should start scheduling this for 20 past 4 rather than 4 o'clock. Sorry I'm a bit late, you guys. I'm looking very blue. Thank you. Hopefully just my shirt and not like all of me. I'm not real sure how to fix that glare on the screen. Is it gone now? Maybe I just turn my brightness down a bit, my screen brightness, and hopefully that will help. Okay, hi Blake, Crockatoo, thank you for saying hi, and I'm sorry that you couldn't be here today, and hi to everyone else. Okay, I think we'll just get straight into it. So first of all, if we go check out what I wrote up from the last session. So I took the 5 things that we discovered from our last session and I added them to part 3 of the DecipherYou series on DecipherYou.com. Now, Blake, you told me there's some way that I can pop out my, pop out chat. Sweet, it is working. Cool. Hey, Jenny Lynn. Thank you for being here. Okie dokie, share screen. Awesome. Now, if I can get to my browser. So, analyzing the Snowden SID Today files, part 3. How do I get my chat window back? Cool, got it. So if you scroll down, you will see the last 5 entries are what we did last time. Here we go. So we did the Johns Hopkins University stuff and the Target Analysis Center stuff and the NSA guy who went to the Iraq War and the NSA executive guy's story and the stuff about West Africa and the NSA basically admitting that, outright admitting that the military is there to secure their oil interests. Cool, so question, who can remember what was the last document that we looked at in the batch? Anyone? Just scrolling through Yakima, we did that. Future of the Web, I'm pretty sure we did that. Target Analysis Center. Town meeting, we did that. Okay, let's check chat and see if someone knows the answer. Okay, I'm pretty sure we're at this. Did we do AU Stronghold material? Okay, there's nothing relevant there that I can see. I'll just quickly tweet and tell people that I am in fact live now. Cool. Okay. Future elevation review. Just receiving files for promotion. Second party working group. Aha, the Five Eyes business vision. Okay, so I would say that the second parties are probably the second tier of the Five Eyes. So if you have read through some of my previous articles about NSA stuff, I've actually gone through and listed the different tiers. It goes right up to the 40 Eyes, which is the NATO and international partners in the so-called global war on terror. So IN is intelligence needs. Sharing information needs at the highest level only is desirable at this time. So that goes back, I guess, to like what the executive was saying from NSA. And is segregating that by so-called customer. And they have service conferences for them. I would love to see the 5-Eye business vision briefing, but I'm pretty sure it does not exist in the SIG Today files, SID Today files. It would be a separate document. But that would definitely be on my wish list for one for the Interceptor release. Okay, I'll just make a little note about that. Horizontal integration capability needs. Fiscal year 2006. And we're in 2004. Okay, so that's just pretty standard strategic operational planning. from what I can tell. I don't see anything particularly interesting there. Here we go, the information or intelligence needs matcher. Essential elements of information, EEI. I wonder who the vendor is. Okay. So there's just more systems and processes stuff for second party customers. More HR stuff. The largest concentration of analysts is in Denver, Colorado. Okay. I don't think that's of any particular interest. ELINT and TextSigInt defined. ELINT is electronic intelligence. Which breaks down into operational, electronic intelligence, and technical. A threat emitter's location. Okay, so this is kind of interesting. So this is like the pipeline by which the intelligence is developed from the signals that are being collected. So they analyze the signals from the device, and then they turn that into, they refine it into intelligence that is useful for from an operational perspective. So this is like where this tech element is like where they're listening, where they're capturing the information. And this op element is where they're acting on the information, where they're actually taking some action as a result of what they've learned from it. And we know from the stuff from part 1 of the series, where we saw the NSA and CIA being like the left and right arm of the executive, one rather than competing agencies, is it's often there's this picture often painted of them as being competing agencies. Actually, they're not. The NSA is collecting the data and the CIA is acting on the data. So this tech ELINT is going to be like primarily the realm of the NSA, and the op ELINT is going to be, well, they say military, but in many cases I would say that this will be the realm of the CIA. So this is the NSA collecting the data, and this is the CIA or whatever other military agency acting on it. And this, where they say, also the tech work is required in order for the military services to build sophisticated threat warning receivers. Threat warning receivers. To me, that says where they've analyzed the technical intelligence and they have established like the patterns of the target, and they want to write algorithms where they can receive warnings that are triggered on certain events, like X person meets with Y person in Z location will trigger, a message to whoever the hell, which could in turn trigger an operation. I'm trying to think of like a domestic surveillance comparison in New Zealand. You see this with the asset tracking companies. Like this type of thing happens in the private surveillance realm and not just in the state surveillance realm, or sometimes is interoperable between the two. But this is a similar type of thing. Like in my documentary, I talk about asset tracking was meant to be like, tracking the diamond necklace that goes to the fashion show. Well, if the beacon, if the receiver, the GPS tracker that's with that $1 million diamond necklace, shows that now it has left the fashion show and is heading to like the wharf or the docks or something where it's like the opposite direction where it's supposed to go, then that action would trigger a warning back through the system, which would tell the receiver to take, order some operational action as a result of that information. Unfortunately, it's not just diamond necklaces that they are tracking. They are tracking people as opposed to just stuff. This is interesting, but it's more contextual to what we already know and what I've already written about. It's just what it's doing is giving us the terminology. So technical electronic intelligence being on the collection side, operational electronic intelligence being on the operational side. Freedom of presentation, the new face of war. Rand Corp. So a senior analyst at Rand Corp, it has a top secret level clearance. Interesting that you like have to be cleared to that level in order to attend, but that they're then videotaping the session. One would wonder like what precautions they're taking around their videoing it. Okay, so this guy, the lecturer Berkowitz, says that there are 4 key dynamics to new warfare: asymmetric threats, which is an often abused term, which can mean a variety of things: advanced information technology, short decision cycles, and network organization. Okay. More HR stuff. Interesting. They were using VHS tape. Well, that would explain how they can like video stuff more securely. Analog tools in a digital world can actually protect you. Hang on, we've been here and done this. PCS is that to be. Wow. So basically, they shower you in benefits if you move to the Japanese base, and many others, I'm sure. Right, but then you have to be basically available 24/7. Social responsibilities. You have to be okay with air pollution. Nice. Mr. K, I am not aware that Rand Corporation was behind the Sony hack. Links about that would be pretty cool. Okay. Geospatial Agency provides accurate and timely expert analysis of worldwide gravity, satellite and positional information, including imagery and mapping control for navigation, safety, intelligence, positioning, and targeting in support of national security objectives. This is interesting. From experience, it's not something that we'll be writing up, but from experience, where they can't have a ground presence, where it is more difficult for them to have a human intelligence presence, they use satellites. They really do use satellites for intelligence. Sometimes visibly. Excuse me. More information about the Target Analysis Center. Oh, this is the metadata cell specifically. Top secret. Community of interest searches, as opposed to person of interest. Community of interest. I'm wondering how that ties in with the class warrants that we've seen implemented in New Zealand by GCSB. Where they get a warrant to spy on a class rather than on an individual. Interesting that they name Saudi Arabia in that. Patterns of activity. Over 3,000 analysts of the telephony suite. Okay. Oh God, so it's basically a CRM. Customer Information Needs Response Integrated Process Team, also known as customer service. So if they didn't have an integrated CRM, then I assume they had a standalone. Okay, so they wanted it to be an interactive portal, customer portal. So like, imagine that. So you're whatever department, whatever government department, or whatever foreign military or second partner, and you go to NSA.net, you know, for want of a better domain, and say, I want to know X about Y. Show me everything. And then they actually, it's literally like ordering a pizza and then they deliver your pizza online. Jenny, you have me on the big screen. You sound like Nick. Nick had me on 4K, and there's like this giant me in his lounge room. I'm not sure. Oh, the screen is very blurry. Really? The problem is, like, for me in Zoom, it looks really clear. It looks really, really, really clear. I think like it's the broadcast somewhere between like my Zoom and what it's actually outputting. Dominoes for Spies says Blake. Yeah, basically. Somehow like the YouTube is downgraded. I don't, maybe like my settings are wrong or something. I don't know. I'm pretty sure my Zoom is in HD. Definitely is in HD. It's legible. Okay, cool. Gold Nugget Award. And the selection of a prime development contractor, Booz Allen Hamilton. So the Booz Allen Hamilton relationship goes back at least 11 years. I presume they're still a contractor to this day, so we could probably safely say 14. Are you guys familiar with the website electrospaces.net? It's where I've referenced it quite a bit in the past, specifically around Five Eyes. If you haven't seen this, I'll type it out. Okay. Hmm. We was talking about data visualizations. Yeah. and integrated access to open source reference data. Oh, right. I don't know if you guys have ever read one of these, but the president's priorities for the intelligence community, as they describe it, they're pretty interesting documents. Very interesting documents. Constantly amazed at the business language, not just the business language, but the business prioritizing. Like they're very customer focus and blah blah blah. Like actually, what something we don't know a lot about yet is what their customers are paying them. So when Snowden spoke in New Zealand and Greenwald did his Snowden reporting in 2014, there was a document published around that time where they were talking about the fees paid by NSA to subsidize the various collection points in the Five Eyes. It would be very interesting to know what NSA billing is to these customers, so-called customers. Are they actually operating as a commercial entity and making money outside of their funding? Or are their customers not paying them because the customers are intergovernment agencies? And then the NSA is simply paying international collection points. At some point, money must be coming in outside of their government budget. It'd be interesting to know where. Sensitive weather intelligence. I don't think it is geoengineering, because that would be our DoD or something, not NSA. NSA is not the right agency for that. But this idea of sensitive weather intelligence is quite interesting because You would think that, like, you know, it would be like the geospatial agency or the, like, satellite people, or the, like, even like some like climate like group or something. You'd think that some other area of the US government would be providing that. In New Zealand, we have NIWA or something like that. You wouldn't expect it to be within NSA. You also wouldn't expect that it would be in the Critical Global Targets Division. So this is the division that he was meeting with and learning about their three missions, the three missions of that division, one of which is the sensitive weather branch. So what the hell is the sensitive weather intelligence? What about weather would be sensitive or based in intelligence rather than being based in climate or, you know, science or space or satellites, something like that? Why would it be within the NSA? And why would it be within the Critical Global Targets Division? How is weather related to targeting? This is the question. Yeah, I mean, how? Like, I don't really want to write it up because we don't have answers yet. Like, the things we're writing up are really the things that we've learned. But why would a sensitive weather branch generating weather intelligence be in the Critical Global Targets Division in the Regional Targets product line? Regional Targets, Signals Intelligence, Development, international organizations, and sensitive weather. Like, you know, it's like I'm hearing the, like, one of these things just doesn't belong here song in my head. Like, regional targets, development, okay, fine. International organizations, okay, fine. Sensitive weather intelligence, like, what the hell? Like, that does not fit. The discussions included the division of effort to do TCOM research against several African countries. Why is it sensitive, Garden Gnome? Why would it be sensitive? What are they? Sensitive weather intelligence. What exactly about weather intelligence is sensitive? Like, what are they able to know about the weather that a weather forecaster or NIWA or some climate or, like, scientific organization monitoring weather patterns wouldn't know? What information would they be controlling? Oh, I'm sure there's some reason. Like, I totally agree. I'm just probing. Sensitive weather branch. Like, to me, it almost sounds like it's some kind of euphemism. Like, I'd wonder if, like, sensitive weather was some, like, term that meant something other than weather, except that they say that the guy's first assignment was to the weather desk. Yeah, radar would. I still think that'd be primarily military. I mean, I guess. Sensitive weather intelligence, sensitive weather branch. I'm gonna add that to my list because that's just strange. Within critical global targets division. In the regional targets product line. Okay, we'll see if we can find anything else out about that. There you go, on the subject of weather. He stayed at a villa at Saddam's presidential palace. Nice. Of course, because that's where Bremer set up shop. Ah, and they went to Abu Ghraib. Interesting. What was the date of the Abu Ghraib scandal, guys? That's what I'd like to know. Yeah, that's a good supposition, Garden Gnome. Like possibly that sensitive weather intelligence is because they're using instruments that are classified or are not available in the standard scientific or commercial sphere. I'd be interested to know, like, this reference is very interesting, this Abu Ghraib, to him, this guy actually having visited Abu Ghraib, specifically talked about interrogations at Abu Ghraib and how they can provide leads for signal intelligence. And they also visited one of Saddam's torture chambers. Okay, let's have a look. Deep sigh for this. You guys probably can't see that very well. April 2004. Okay, and when is this document? November 2004. So this is like, this is post Abu Ghraib. Okay. Oh my God. How a 4-star general once waited for a lowly captain to finish eating lunch. Front page of the New York Times, I'm sure. Brzezinski. I cannot believe that is even a story. Oh my God, I want like 3 minutes of my life back that I just spent reading that. Netscape. It's instructing people on using Netscape. Okay, this is very interesting. Very, 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 very interesting. So I was watching FBI ex-assistant director of the FBI drone on this freaking keynote speech this week, and he made a specific point of saying the US doesn't spy for economic reasons. The US only spies for security reasons and only spies on terrorists, etc., etc. This is something that you hear them claim over and over again. They've claimed this in New Zealand as well, that they don't spy for economic reasons, that they just spy for security reasons. And then, of course, we discovered that, in fact, the New Zealand's NSA, the GCSB, had used X-Keyscore to search up information on competitors to Tim Grosser, our ex-trade minister's application for like the head of the World Trade Organization. So they had, in fact, in New Zealand, been spying on other, foreign diplomats and even allies, spying on our allies for economic reasons, for trade reasons. Sure enough, in our last session that we did here, we saw in the West Africa stuff that the NSA openly admitted that there were economic reasons that they were in West Africa and that the military was there to support those reasons. Prior to that, when we looked at the strategic operational planning document, the strategic forecasting document for 2006 to 2010, the NSA had listed as number one target, as number one priority, strategic priority, as being the economic expansion of the European Union, as being a bigger threat even than China or than terrorism. So what this document is saying is that they have Global Economic Security Day. So really, like, just that terminology like shows that to them, economic security is security. These things are like inherently tied together. And look at this, policymakers and intelligence managers and analysts from across the US economics and intelligence communities enhance network across the economics community and the intelligence ranks to ultimately strengthen economic security here and around the globe. So this is just like case in point evidence, as if we didn't have enough of it already, that spying is all about economics. Spying is all about money. Spying isn't about terrorism. It's not about stopping wars. It's about facilitating wars. It's about continuing wars. But primarily, first and foremost, above counterterrorism or any international geopolitical competition, it is about economics. Oh, look. It is open to all blue badge employees who work economics-related issues. So they're openly saying that like a subsection of their workforce is tasked with working economics-related issues. Global Economic Security Day. Okay. So when we listen to ex-assistant director of the FBI, who's now president of CrowdStrike, talk about how the US doesn't spy for money, we can have a good laugh to it ourselves. Interagency understanding. Enhanced networking. Right. Okay, this is useful. Yeah, I have seen some Centre for Strategic and International Studies broadcasts. I think I watched some in the context of studying Philip Mudd, the ex-CIA guy who resigned when he wouldn't testify before the Senate over the Senate torture report, who then became a CNN or something contributor. He's like a so-called terrorism expert on the cable news channels now. It's pretty nauseating stuff, to be honest with you. I grit my teeth. I find it very hard to listen to that. I study it for journalistic purposes, but I find it very difficult to listen to. It's like spending my entire Saturday listening to FBI keynote speeches. It was a painful experience. Well, Gardner's asked me, who do I think is a master in such a collaboration between corporate and intelligence agencies? This is, every single one of these documents is framed in business language, right? And it's all about, I mean, you can see them bending over backwards to create customer portals and to have high-tech CRMs and stuff. So in business, if you don't please your customers, then you go out of business. So that's one of the things I would love to see is who is on the customer list outside of government agencies and outside of international partners, who is in their customer list that is, because I mean, we've talked a lot in the anti-spy bill events and meetings about the fact that the so-called critical infrastructure of these countries involves the private sector. It involves the banks. It involves these, significant, large, predominantly international corporations that they have been, they're being protected by the intelligence agencies. This is what it comes down to. They're being protected. They are customers of the intelligence agencies. I would like to see some more in these documents about that. I haven't yet. I mean, we've heard about corporate partnerships in terms of the PRISM program, where we have, major tech companies and stuff colluding with the NSA. But we don't know very much about who's in the customer sphere of the NSA outside of the military and outside of the government in the private sector. But yeah, you're completely right that obviously the master in such a collaboration is the customers, and is only limited by the policymakers, and the policymakers, as we know, are elected because of financial contributions from undoubtedly those same corporate customers. I agree with you that it's nothing new and that this goes back, hundreds of years. But at the same time, they are pretty desperate from a PR perspective for us not to know that or talk about that. And that's why they have chumps like Mr. X, Assistant Director of the FBI, standing up there going, oh, no, we don't spy for economic reasons. I mean, one of his talks was at DEF CON of all places, and he's just gung-ho about, you will be preventing the theft of private data, you will be, we're defending people's personal property and we're blah, 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 he made multiple references to the Stratfor hack, to GI files, but he never named them. He didn't name them, but he kept saying, oh, I worked on this case with this company had lost 10 years of critically important data and over the course of a couple of days, and it was $1 billion worth of intellectual property, and it was blah 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 blah, and he made it all out like, you know, it's this like perfectly innocent company minding their own business when the evil hackers come along and totally destroy it. Like, totally fails to mention that it was the world's largest private intelligence agency. It was like making money trading the stuff in the commercial sphere that should never have been there in the first place. I mean, what was Stratfor? Stratfor was basically a customer, right? That's like, it had its own customers. Stratfor, rather than just having customers that were government departments or international partners, you know, militaries and governments, Stratfor was selling information to the highest bidder. Like, any Tom, Dick, or Harry that had enough money to buy a subscription could participate in the behemoth Stratfor intelligence network. You didn't even have to be a government agency. You didn't have to have a security clearance. You didn't have to, it could have been anybody on the planet, if you could pay Stratfor money, could access that intelligence. So that was like, Stratfor was like the ultimate like corporate NSA. And of course, it's all staffed by, like, you see, you know, there's personal relations. We talked last time about the revolving door. Someone said like the NSA is a revolving door corporate. One of those revolving doors is back and forth with companies like Stratfor, right? And then you have the Stratfor CEO, George Friedman, whatever his name is. His, like, he is freaking related to Leighton by marriage to Leighton Smith, who is like the most, I'm sorry, in my opinion, most fascist right-wing broadcaster in New Zealand. Like, oh my God, I can't even get started on how hideous he is. But he also has one of the largest listening audiences in the country. And so they have this network of like really high profile people with like massive access to, you know, the public mind. And they were all trading this information back and forth like around the world. And like, what are the like national implications of that? Like, from like, where do your loyalties lie? Like, if you're paying money to access the intelligence and you're charging money to issue the intelligence, like, where are the borders of propriety there? Like, there aren't any. I'm not really getting where you're going with that, Gardner. Look, I think they are worried about the opinions of citizens because the citizens are their recruiting pool. That's where they are recruiting. Sorry, Garden, just for the record, Garden Gnome has said he doesn't think they're worried about the opinions of the citizens. I think they are, because when they go and talk at DEF CON and they're giving a recruitment that's like part of a recruitment drive. They have all the recruiters there for the different agencies and they want staff. And to get qualified staff, they need to suck up to people in the IT industry. They have no choice. They need to convince them to come and work for the agency. At the beginning of the ex-FBI assistant director guy's DEF CON talk, for the first like 3 or 4 minutes of his talk, he literally plays a video of the hostage rescue team from the FBI like busting down doors to save lives and busting into an airplane to save hostages, and like it's this whole big like theater. Like if you join the FBI, you'll be saving people's lives. If you join the, and then he let slip it was all training exercise afterwards because they never done bloody damn thing like that. But it's like this is the framework. This is the framework that they're pushing their propaganda in. Is like, we are going to save the day. It's like a full-on action movie, like the whole like 9 yards, right? And of course it has like absolutely nothing to do with spying for economic reasons and spying for corporations, which is exactly what we're seeing in these documents is what's actually going on. Okay, onwards and forwards. Oh. Okay, so you're saying during the end of the Cold War, the intelligence paradigm changed. You don't think that there was this... my assumption is that there was always back channels, intelligence back channels between corporations and between government, but that what there wasn't was the like wide scale, like private, like the subcontractors and the privatization of spying functions. And I would like to think that things were a bit more regulated. I mean, I don't know, but I would assume that they were a bit more regulated. Now we have like, mercenary armies, and we have like mercenary intelligence agencies, which is what Stratfor was, et cetera, et cetera. Aha. This is so good. I love how they have like separate documents giving more details about this target analyst center stuff, because for me, target analysis center stuff, because for me, this is extremely fascinating. Extremely fascinating. Garden Gnome, that's like really before my time, and I know virtually nothing about it. There's like a big, because the thing is, like, unfortunately, I'm not a Nikki Haga or someone who has like 30 years experience writing about this stuff. Like pretty much everything I know is from being on the like brunt end of it in New Zealand as a target, and what I have read and studied since then. So like in the world of like understanding intelligence and how it works, I consider myself a total noob. Like there are other people who think that I have like some level of expertise. I personally don't think that at all, because I've only been like had any contact with any of this information like the last 5 years. So I really don't have a clue. I know very, very little about the fall of the Soviet Union. I know some of what I've learned here from like, in terms of like about the repression, pre-fall of the Soviet Union, I've actually I've been to the Gulag Museum. I've been and visited various places and learned about the history, but I know very little about how intelligence worked during that time. I mean, other than the generalizations that everyone was spied on, which I take to be similar to, the German experience. So the interesting thing about this the social network is that this is what this target analysis center, if you look at what we learned last time, last time we learned that there is something called the Target Analysis Center, which has 3 different divisions in that, 3 major teams. One is the metadata analysis cell, one is the social network analysis, and then the third one was the target development services, which is probably the most Orwellian named thing I've ever heard of in my life. Or at least certainly the most creepy. So those 3 teams provide services to the analysts that are in charge of the targets. So of the full-on profiling and analysis of the target. So these are outsourced shops that can do the grunt work of collection, so that the analyst, this is my understanding at this point, so the analyst who's in charge of the target is not having to try and do all of those individual tasks themselves. So rather than the analyst having to, canvass the social network of the target and collect all the metadata of the target and do whatever God knows what the target and development services do, which I think is supposed to be some kind of oversight, but what is oversight in the world of FISA? Pfizer, as Americans say, Pfizer courts and stuff, whatnot. So this is this whole integrated approach to distributing the workload of targeting someone. So this was kind of a bit of a watershed, oversight, exactly. So this is a bit of a watershed moment for me in our last stream, where I had had this concept in my head that I'd thought of the spying as being an individual analyst having maybe 4 or 5 or 6 or 10, or I don't know how many targets that they're responsible for. And I thought of it as being limited to that. But what I'm reading in these documents is that it's not like that at all. There's this, the workflow is spread across this, these 3 groups and God knows whatever else, other satellite support networks are there. And that together they collectively through this chain, each of them producing a little piece of the target's life, the social network or the metadata or the blah, 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 blah. And then all of that is going to the target analyst, who is then producing the reporting on it. That's my current understanding, which means, what that means is that actually rather than there being one analyst and having a bunch of targets, there's actually a bunch of analysts having that, sharing that same target, but just different aspects of the targeting. All right, here we go. Social network analysis is an analytic approach that uses sociology, graph theory, and statistics to characterize the structure and behavior of networks and individuals. So that sociology factor ties in quite neatly with the JTRIG documents, at least the principles in the JTRIG documents, where they're literally psychoanalyzing you and then exploiting the profile that they built. See, so this goes beyond just the social network. This is all of their social interactions in their life. This is not just Like, we think of social network as being Twitter or Facebook. This is way beyond that. Who they work with, who they know, who they receive money from. Potentially highlights exploitable weaknesses. Which in turn also supports military operations planning and execution. Ha! Foreign Information Operations Threat Division. Okay, so like we know that economics, that they're spying for economic reasons. We know that the number one threat to them was an expanding economic union of the European Union in their strategic forecast. We know that pretty much every head or ex-head of an intelligence agency in America signed the letter stating that George Soros, very cute, stating that the TPP was a matter of national security, that they needed to sign, they wanted the TPP signed. Which means that people who were heavily associated with the movements to stop the TPP, TTIP, and TISA agreements were economic threats, were threats to the economic security. So it was very interesting in New Zealand, because in New Zealand the government actually named the New Zealand movement against the TPP no way, It's Our Future New Zealand movement. They named us threats to national security, which we found like fucking ridiculous, quite frankly. But they did actually label us threats to national security. And all we were doing is just having marches saying we didn't want them to sign the TPP. Like, that was it. Like, you know. But they actually named us threats to national security, which has massive implications, legal implications, because once they brand you that, they are invoking terrorist legislation and all of the pro-spying legislation and related things. So, like, you notice here in this document, they're like, you know, here's an example of a social networking targeting that we did. It was on Mujahideen, a Khalq terrorist group in Iraq. Right, well, they might use that as their example, but in the meantime, we know that they are concerned with economics and spying, and that, you know, in the modern day scenario, that wouldn't be XYZ terrorist group from Iraq, that would be ABC anti-TPP activism group from New Zealand or wherever else in the world. And that the members of that activism group are having their organizations, attributes, relations, metadata, social interactions illuminated by the Social Network Analysis Work Centre at the NSA to assess the scope, complexity, and structure of their networks and the roles that those individuals play within them. Dr. Jane Kelsey, who New Zealanders wanted to vote New Zealander of the Year, who was the primary researcher and organizer of the movement against the TPP in New Zealand, will be having her, you know, who she works with, who she knows, who she receives money from, match. And of course, this violates pretty much every democratic principle in existence, the Bill of Rights, and not to mention United Nations Declaration on Human Rights. But that is the kind of shit that we're dealing with, is this. And this goes way beyond anything that we knew about before. So when Snowden talks about these programs, and he tends to talk about this, like, specific purposes of specific programs, or the, and what's the word I'm looking for? Or the information flows between them. But this is the most highly specified information that I've ever seen or heard or found about precisely the targeting processes of the NSA. This whole target analysis center and the breakdown to the 3 teams and the everything else like this. I actually almost want to start like graphing it and actually make some like workflow diagrams of it and show like the different groups that are in the NSA that are involved in it. Like we knew about like JTRIG, which is like the most evil of the evil, but there's predominantly GCHQ, right, in the UK. Whereas this is NSA targeting processes. This is getting very close to the type of information that I would be very interested in, which is to get a real picture, a good picture of precisely what the hell it is that they're doing to people. Because they're not doing it to Muhammad whoever in Iraq, they're doing it to Susie Dawson's solo mother in Beach Haven, in Auckland, in New Zealand, and God knows who else. God knows who else. That entire paragraph needs to be looked at carefully. Okay. So, like, the other thing I keep seeing in my mind is there is a user training video for the hacking team software, the software that they use to physically compromise your device. I mean, they access it remotely usually, but they implant it remotely, they exploit it remotely, and they collect all the information from your device. That user video is extremely valuable for understanding from the perspective of the spies making the collection exactly what they collect and how they collect it. So not just that they can get your photos, your emails, your, you know, whatever you type in and your GPS and information and blah, 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 blah. But you can actually see screen by screen like how it's collected, how it's organized, and the views that they can get, and some really specific stuff like as well, like you know, where they can set like that it will screenshot every X seconds or that things like this. that shows us how your device is compromised and how and what they are collecting and seeing from you. But what these documents are telling us is how that information that is collected is processed, how the signals intelligence is processed, and how it is converted into a full-on detailed profile, not just of what's on your phone, but of your entire life. Your entire life. That is what the social network analysis is. They are analyzing every facet of your existence, not just from your cell phone or from your computer, but literally everything, all the relationship analysis, everything. It's off the charts intrusive. It's beyond anything dreamed of by Orwell in a million years. Right. Garden gnome. Everyone is a target, you say. Right. So the New Zealand media this year, they like every week they had a different line that they ran against me. At one point it was, you only care about this because you're on a personal vendetta against the spies because they spied on you. And my response to them was, mass surveillance means that they're spying on everyone. I am not the sole target of the intelligence agencies. They are collecting on everybody by default. So you're completely correct about that. Everyone is a target. And you're absolutely right. Like that question, who determines the importance of the targets, is what Garden Gnome is asking. And that is a bloody good question. That is a good question, because at some point we have got to start isolating who is making these decisions, who is having solo mum from the suburb activists targeted by fucking intelligence agencies. Like the imbalance of power is just, it's like, I can't even describe how big the balance of power, the difference between the balance of power of like a fucking international spy agency and like a solo mom from the suburbs. And the idea that anybody would think that it is appropriate under any circumstances whatsoever to turn a military infrastructure against an unarmed civilian, like, is off the charts. So who is doing it? It's a really, really, really good question. Is it the customers that are nominating the targets? Because that's what it appears to be. It appears to be that the GCSB in New Zealand, we know of 88 targets, there could be thousands, but there were at least 88 targets that they passed to the NSA. So it seems... Okay, so Garden Gnome is saying that AI sorts and prioritizes it in the initial stages. I'm considering the implications of this. So I've talked in the past about how I could see the screen. I could actually see the precise moment at which my old desktop computer was being remotely accessed, because the remote access would literally trigger a screen blinker at the point that the connection was made. When I was writing an article on Occupy Savvy, like this was really early on, I typed, for some reason, I typed the words like arms deal or arms dealer or something. The second that I typed it, it was instant screen blink, like instant remote connection. So at that point, it was a keyword trigger. And the collection, that it was the keywords, it was the fact that I was typing that phrase that triggered the collection. Later on, me turning on my computer was enough to literally would trigger a remote connection from boot. But there was a time at which it was definitely being triggered by keyword. So is that what you mean in terms of AI? So then the AI, sends an alert that this person is talking about arms dealing. I mean, never mind that this person is a journalist and like doing like valid reporting, but is that what you mean by AI? Or do you mean... Or is that coupled with other factors? It must be, because they can't just be instantly spying on everybody in the world who types the words arms deal. There had to have been some like compromise prior. There had to have been. Okay, so Jenny, what you're talking about is retrospective. So that's where they go into their giant haystack and they go, okay, we're going to look for everybody who's typed the words arms deal. But in order for my computer to be triggering that remote connection based off what I'm typing into my keyboard, the computer already had to have been compromised. So already there had been what they call, CNE is like computer network exploitation. Like I had already been on a list to have my device compromised in order for that collection mechanism to be being used. If it's retrospective collection, it wouldn't happen like that. It wouldn't be in real time. I mean, maybe it is these days, but yeah, that's what I was trying to say before about like it couldn't solely be that. It would have to be a number of factors, right? Like known activists and or like whatever, but the targeting had to have come before that monitoring. I wouldn't have been targeted as a result of the monitoring. I've been monitored as a result of the targeting. And what I was trying to say before about the customers ordering the targets, okay, like it was very abundantly clear that I was like locally targeted and like nationally targeted and like then internationally targeted. And like there was like this like process of escalation. It wasn't like the NSA woke up one day and said, we're coming after Susie in Beach Haven. Like it was very much like, and I remember someone actually saying to me very early on, like there was a couple of really smart activists who had been around the blocks, like even from decades prior, like well before my time. And they gave me some really, really good advice that at the time, I didn't actually realize how significant what they were telling me was until like years later in retrospect. And one of them said, like, you can take on the city council because the city council is the lowest rungs of power and the councillors are seen as completely expendable, right? Like the global empire does not give a toss if some city councillor gets like knocked out of off his perch. But then the next layer is that you can go up against the national government. And that's like a bit more serious because there's more investment in it. And the National Party, which at the time was in power. You can go up against the Prime Minister because there will always be another Prime Minister, though of course it's more dangerous than going after a city councillor. You can go after the police agencies for the same reason, because like you'll have a new commissioner of police, a new minister of police, periodically. These are all temporary positions. They said to me, if you go after the military, you're fucked. Like if you go after the military, like that, a councillor is expendable, the National Party, individuals in the National Party are expendable, the PM is going to eventually change anyway, your national government is going to turn over, but the military never turns over. And I also had like a warning, like a nasty warning from like the bad guys, which basically said like, you can go after the police, but you don't go after the military. And this is their mindset. This is how they think. And this is like it's like peeling back the layers of the onion, right? And at the central control mechanism is the military. It's not the government, it's not the politicians, it's not the police, it's certainly not the councils. The central control mechanism for the planet is the military. So, back to reviewing military documents. Okay, that's very, very helpful and useful, the social network analysis. Excuse me, guys, like I have a dropping nose. I think it's like that heater here. Okay. And look, this is the other thing that we have to take into consideration. Like they call it discovering new targets, but when you have the privatization of spying, it becomes a money factor, right? Like you have to expand the pool of targets so that you can expand your entire pyramid scheme, which is really what these intelligence agencies are. It becomes profitable to constantly grow the target base, which will in turn lower the entry barrier for becoming a target. Okay, guys, I'm gonna have to get a cup of tea because I have itchy throat and runny nose. I will be back in about 5 minutes. I'm just going to pause and then I will continue. Thank you for your understanding. Okay, guys, I'm back. Thank you for waiting for me. I have my tea and my what Americans would call ramen. Okay, in the hope that chicken broth will help me cope here. I see also we've been going for like 2 hours, so I'm probably going to wrap this up relatively soon, but let's try for like another 10 documents first. I don't have much to write up today yet, actually. Only like 2 more things. But still, we've done well out of this batch already. Okay, so yeah, they see some cocaine. Oh, sorry, I should actually share my screen. What a nub. Protocols for sending email. Oh, God. How to set up a signature file. Click Microsoft Outlook help. And they don't want people sending JPEGs around. Well, CIA Vault 7 files had like thousands of JPEGs, like random internet memes and stuff. Okay, advanced computer network exploitation at the Kunia ASOC. Kunia, this is Hawaii, right? Isn't it? I'm pretty sure. And there's the tailored access operations group. So it's just disaster recovery. And the NSA is delving into proprietary software yet again. You guys are cracking me up in chat. Okay, I'm just going to have a quick skim through the rest. The jumbled pet password guessing team. There is a substantial percentage of these documents that seem to do little more than to justify the existence of the management class in NSA. to reassure people that their bosses actually do something for a job. Okay. Okay, guys. I think that's it for tonight. At some point before the next stream, I will write up our findings from today and add them to the part 3 article. What is it now? It's Tuesday now here. Probably Thursday night, I would say, would be the next stream. Are there any questions you guys want to ask me before I go? Thank you. I'm not actually sick. I just think it's the change of season has affected me. And also like this whole like living in a country with central heating thing is very new for me as well. So I think my body's reacting to that. And of course it being 6:30 in the morning doesn't help things. Yeah, if you type my name in YouTube, there should be plenty to keep you occupied. Cool. Anyone else want to say anything or ask anything? Thank you all for being here and for keeping me company. It is very cool of you to do so. Okay, have a good night, you guys. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you a bit later in the week. Okay. Night, night.